As Jesse said, my name is Jim Anderson. I'm responsible for leading our smart city activities in the U.S. We've been at it for a little over a year now, so we're relatively new in the space, I would say, from an overall smart city perspective. But as far as dealing with cities and dealing with infrastructures in cities, we've been doing that for many years. So we are very familiar from a city organization, city structure, and the infrastructures associated to those cities. So I'm going to talk this morning a little bit about cities made real today. We don't need to be waiting. There's some things we can be doing, setting up for the cities of the future. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bit of a process, and then get into some examples of some cities around the world that we've have been active in and working this whole process. So from that standpoint, a little bit about Schneider Electric, because I think we are one of the largest companies that no one has ever heard of. In fact, I was talking to someone this morning, and orange trucks are not part of who we are. We really are an energy management company, a global specialist in energy management, with about 22.5 billion euros in sales. That's roughly $29 billion in sales. Over 137,000 people in more than 100 countries around the world. You can see from a geographic balance, we are pretty much balanced from a sales revenue perspective, focused on pretty much 5 diversified end markets. Some of the things that from a U.S. country standpoint that you may be, the name may be more familiar to you from a brand standpoint would be Square D from a power perspective, or APC from a data center perspective, or most recent acquisitions would be Summit Energy from an energy consulting standpoint, or Telvent from a software solutions infrastructure business. So those are all parts of who Schneider Electric is and what it is we have capability to go do. So getting to the city side of things, okay, so what we need to talk about are the cities and why the cities need to become smarter. I think there's a lot of evidence around that today. I won't bore you with all those details, as we recognize that populations continue to move to cities, as cities become the place where much of the energy will be consumed in the next 40 years. 80% of the energy will be consumed in cities. Over 90% of the greenhouse gases will be in cities. So lots of things need to change. Lots of things need to happen relative to cities. So we think that as a way to get things moving and get the ball rolling, we think urban efficiency is a main foundational brick to get cities to move forward now, rather than waiting for some event to happen in their future. So we think urban efficiency, we think that delivers livability, and we think that delivers sustainability. So looking at when we talk about urban efficiency, what are we talking about? We're talking about efficiencies from an energy use perspective. We're talking about efficiencies in buildings. We're talking about efficiencies in transportation, those kinds of things. We think we can start to generate efficiencies associated to those different areas of the city, use those potential savings associated from those efficiencies, and start to drive other things in the city around improving public services, like schools, like crime, like security, those kinds of things, which in turn make the city more livable from a place where you want to have people come, which attracts more people to want to live in that city because they hear about the good things going on in the city, which then gets into this idea of creating jobs and economic development, which quite frankly is the holy grail of city governments. Is they want to have show growth, show jobs coming into the city, show businesses coming into the city. So in fact, I was at a meeting with one of the mayors of a major U.S. city not that long ago, and he made it very clear that in his role as trying to drive economic development in his city, that sustainability, this idea of sustainability and driving the city of the future, is extraordinarily important for recruiting new companies into the city. He says that is one of the top 2 questions that the recruited companies ask him is, what's your plan around sustainability and what are you trying to drive? And making sure that is somewhat compatible with what the company wants to go do and what the company wants to be known as. So that is an extraordinarily important part of cities, city government, city mayors around economic development. Which then, the more companies that get there, you start to increase the competitiveness of the city, which then gets to the whole idea around delivering clean, connected growth within the city. So we think we think urban efficiency is a main driver of sustainability, and we think that can start happening today. There's not there because generally we can find ways to make it pay for itself. So we talk about 5 steps into becoming smart, and I use that term in quotes. Smart's a term that's okay, but it's way overused and way undefined. So we use it today, but something will evolve and change to that. The first one is working with city governments and talking about trying to establish a vision with the city government. A lot of cities today are doing that, okay? They're having discussions around city government, around what their city wants to be, what's their future look like, trying to do city planning, that's what city planners do. Really trying to establish the vision from an efficient, livable, sustainable city. And quite frankly, what really is required here from the city government standpoint is you need a strong leader, a strong advocate. You need a bold advocate inside the city government, typically the mayor, to drive this thing forward. Without a bold visionary, things tend to not move forward nearly as fast. So you really need to find the bold advocate inside city government to really make that happen. And then you need to move into I would say, defining some scale projects for the city, particularly for our perspective around efficiencies. Scale projects, whether it has to do with the energy and how the energy grid is operating within the city, within transportation, within buildings, whatever the vertical in the city would be, it doesn't matter. But really start to get some scalable projects within the city to drive efficiencies in the city, and then utilize those efficiency savings to start to generate other projects within the city around more livability and driving to sustainability. The third step is once you start getting your foundational piece in place at the do-it level around the efficiency side of things, is that then you can start bringing in the integration side. So you can start integrating the information that you capture from the water department with the transportation department and start linking things together from an integration perspective, which starts to then improve the efficiencies of the city at a different level. But again, you're always driving efficiencies within the city, but that's the idea of the integration side. And then at the same time, throughout this whole process, innovation. Innovation is absolutely critical, and in fact, I think innovation is one of the most important points on this thing. Is it's innovation not so much from a technology standpoint, but innovation from a business model perspective, from a financing perspective, innovation from I would say looking at problem solving differently than the way we've always looked at problems. That's one of the biggest issues that I think I see in cities, is this whole idea of change management and getting cities to look at problems from a different perspective. Typically, the easy answer is always to go back and do what I've always done because that's the easy thing to go do, when at the end of the day, that's maybe not the best answer to go do. So really, it's about the innovation side of things that really starts to, I would say, get the things moving forward. And then the last piece of that is really getting into the collaboration. And collaboration, I think, from a broader perspective of not only within industry, people like us sitting in this room, but also collaboration with all the different stakeholders that are relevant to cities and city governments. And there are many, as you all know. So really, those are the 5 steps. Extraordinarily difficult at times, like everything. But generally, we start ticking off those steps and start ticking down that process. It becomes a workable plan that you can start to work with from a city standpoint. So that's the methodology that we're trying to establish as Schneider Electric, and start taking that to the different cities. And so this just gives you an idea of, we've got projects that we've done over 200 cities around the world. Some of the things we have learned around the urban efficiency side of this is the fact that, we certainly believe there's up to 30% energy savings potential. There's up to 15% savings in water that's possible. You can see the transportation from a 20% reduction in travel time. These come from real live case studies. This isn't something that gets made up. So at the end of the day, this starts to become real money from a city perspective. So you think of a city like a major city in the U.S. that maybe have a $350 million annual energy spend. You start saving 15, 20, 25% on that, it starts to become real money for the city to reinvest in other things for the city to go do. So this is real savings that is possible today that doesn't have to wait for things going on in the future, wait for new technology, because the technology exists today. So what we know what it takes to do these things. And I'll give you some examples of 3 different cities around the world that we've got some information on, that we have done some real projects with. First one is Dallas. So we've done some SCADA improvements from the water department and the distribution system in Dallas. So generally, clearly you got to start with the foundational SCADA level within that, and then you can start to build on other applications on top of the SCADA, whether it's leak detection or whatever that may be, but start to really deliver some solutions and start to deliver some results on the efficiencies gained by putting the SCADA in. But beyond that, the one that's really quite interesting, that really is a pilot project going on in Dallas, is this intermodal transportation pilot project with a 20-mile section of US 75 going from northeast Dallas down to central Dallas. It basically follows the same the same line as the red route, I think, on the DART transit system. So 20-mile stretch of road that we are incorporating lots of different, I would say, areas that we are investigating, passing information back and forth to try to improve the transit rate coming in and out of the city down that route. So from an intermodal perspective, not only do we have the freeway traffic management system and the dynamic message signing on the freeway boards, we also incorporate that into the transit system going down the rail, to notify people that there may be an accident down the road somewhere, to potentially get off at the next exit and take the rail in, if that's what you want to go do. And then beyond that, they're also integrating into the local secondary streets along the roadway of US 75 some traffic management signalization that says if there's a problem on the freeway, so now I may need to move the traffic a little bit faster on the side roads, so now I'm going to make the lights change in it to try to get the traffic going faster down the secondary streets. So not only is it an interesting play from an integration standpoint, it's also an interesting learning opportunity from a behavior change management standpoint. How will the travelers really behave given this information? Will they change? Will they not change? And what do we think would make them change going forward? So lots of learning taking place with this integrated corridor management opportunity in Dallas. It should become operational sometime around the end of this year. So we'll be again starting to capture some real data associated to that. Another area another city that we have done a lot of work in is in Houston, Texas. Now, not all the cities are in Texas, just so you know. But this happens to be another one. And I'm not from Texas either, so it just happens to be there. The interesting one about Houston is more about the office buildings that we've done, or actually the city-owned administrative buildings in Houston. Roughly 40 municipal buildings that cover around 11 million square feet of office space that we've gone through and improved the efficiencies of those office buildings to where the city's actually saving around $3 million a year in energy savings associated to those buildings. And so the interesting part of that is the first phase of that was actually, making the buildings more efficient in what it is they do. We haven't even taken it to the next step, which would be then connecting those buildings to the grid and start working the grid side of that thing as well. So really there is more learning to go do relative to that, but clearly, getting to the next level at the grid level is an important next step as we go down this journey of energy efficiency or urban efficiency going forward. And that ties very closely into what things are going on and what we're doing relative to smart grid. So a lot of things, a lot of interesting things happening in Houston. And then the final one is in Brazil, and I'm sure you'll hear more about this today as well, because this happens to be I would say, a global city that clearly has a lot of activity going on, or has had a lot of activity going on over the past few years, of which Schneider has been very involved, mostly through the Telvent piece of Schneider, from providing lots of different software systems into there, SCADA on the water distribution system and the energy distribution management system, but also putting in, being part of the security surveillance system and also the traffic management system. But recognizing that all of that data coming up from all those different systems are all coming from Schneider systems that then feed into the integrated intelligent operations center that the city is running. So we didn't do the integration of that, but we're providing most of the data, a lot of the data that comes into that center. So we really are, as a business, we really are at the the operational level of the city, trying to drive urban efficiency at the operational level of the city to then move up into the next stages of the city going forward. So just in conclusion, the final thoughts. One, smart cities is not a concept. From an urban efficiency standpoint, we need to be driving things today, and we can be driving things today. What we need to do is really start to follow the process around that, start to really find cities that have strong leadership, strong willingness to move forward, and really start to put forth some innovation around what we can go do with those cities. And then the second piece of that is really the collaboration that needs to take place, both in terms of the industry collaboration, like a lot of the people in this room, but also the collaboration, the broader view of collaboration with city government, regional government, federal government, state government, all those other different stakeholders that become part of the makeup of a smarter city. So that's all I have.